It's been 11 long years since its underwhelming reboot, but finally the Thief series is back, and this time wannabe burglars will be using virtual reality to make their trinket yoinking even more immersive than it was before.
I thought I was dead.
Thief VR Legacy of Shadow is the name of the 5th entry in the series, and recently I, Eurogamer's Ian Higton, got to play 2 levels from the game on PSVR 2, starting with the tutorial level Stone Market. There, players get introduced to the game's new protagonist, Magpie, and reintroduced to the city and its eagle-eyed guards. After completion of that, I was skipped forward a few levels to Ravencourt Manor, a much more traditional Thief-style heist level in which I had to infiltrate said manor to pinch a mysterious treasure known as the Glyphstone.
I have a simple job planned for this evening. Break into a guarded mansion, steal another fat nobleman's priceless trinket, and leave quietly.
Now, the timeline of the Thief games is fairly confusing, especially considering the 4th game in the series is a reboot that's just called Thief, and not Thief 4, or Thief 4th, as it was originally called, before everyone took the piss. Anyway, according to its developers, Thief VR Legacy of Shadow is set 200 years after Thief Deadly Shadows, the 3rd game in the series, and 200 years before the events of the 2014 reboot, which places all of the games in the same universe. Just like in the first 3 games, the 2014 Thief reboot stars a light-fingered protagonist called Garrett. However, 2014 Garrett is voiced by a different actor, Romano Orzari, rather than the original's Stephen Russell. This is supposedly because 2014's Garrett is actually a reincarnation of the original Sneak Thief from 400 years ago, which kind of makes sense if you want to reboot a series, but still keep the history consistent. Consistory?
I'm harmless. Leave me alone.
Still following? Okay, let's get back to Legacy of Shadow. As I mentioned earlier, Legacy of Shadow features a player character called Magpie, a newcomer to the series who at some point in the game gets her hands, or I guess maybe that should be eye sockets, on Garrett's legendary mechanical eye that he received after the climax of the very first game. This eye not only allows Magpie to activate something called Glyph Vision, which highlights nearby enemies and points of interest, but it also has the added bonus of allowing series fans to rejoice in the dulcet tones of Stephen Russell, who makes a welcome return as the voice of the original Garrett, who Magpie begins to hear in her head after gaining the eye.
Oh wait, you're just a voice and a trinket.
Let's stay focused on the Glyphstone. Get to the manor. And try not to trip any alarms.
Oh, and on the topic of timelines and that mechanical eye, you can actually find it as a unique piece of loot in the Thief reboot, stashed away in a hanging prison cage in Chapter 5.
Now, what do we have here?
And it still looks in pretty good nick after 400 years too. Ha! Those mechanists sure knew how to make a sturdy eyeball. So, now we know when the game takes place, but how good does that place actually look? Well, played on the PSVR 2, it looks really nice, in a gloomy, oppressive, probably smells real bad steampunk kind of way. The PSVR 2's HDR works great with the dark environments, and there's a high level of detail to not only the exteriors, with some lovely views across the city, but also in regards to the interiors and props too. There's a sort of semi-realism to the visuals, detailed but with a cel-shaded vibe to them, but this suits the setting and it makes the game look comparable to the modern Thief reboot rather than the early noughties originals. I enjoyed picking up books and pieces of paper and examining their rough textures, like here with this child's drawing of a biblically accurate angel or whatever the hell it's meant to be. And as someone who used to work in the jewellery business, I also loved being able to inspect all of the gorgeous gem set jewellery that I kept pocketing. The lighting was great too, especially the way the roaring fires in the street cast the shadows of the guards against nearby walls, so that I could easily tell which way they were moving without having to leave the cover of darkness. Just like the rest of the world, Magpie's hands and gloves also have that highly detailed comic book styling to them. But lovers of full body rigs will be disappointed to hear that you are limited to controlling a couple of floaty hands only.
Damn, city watch nearby.
Best thing the Baron's done, enforcing curfew.
On the subject of hands, how do the all-important virtual interactions fare? The amount of things you can pick up, play with, and touch can either make or break a VR game in my opinion, and thankfully there's plenty of things to interact with here. There are drawers to slide open, foods to eat, candle flames to pinch out, vents to open, and of course loads of props to pocket, smash, or throw for handy distractions. Alongside all of this, you've also got a physical inventory pouch, which you can pull out to access things like keys and quest items. And there's a fairly satisfying lockpick mechanic, which utilises gentle twists of the wrists in order to find the sweet spots of the lock.
Oh, yes!
The illusion of having a solid world wrapped around you isn't pulled off quite as well, though, as, say, Batman Arkham Shadow. That was a similarly stealthy game, but in it, your virtual fingers would move according to the rough surfaces that you ran them across. Whereas in Legacy of Shadow, when I tried something similar, Magpie's hands barely reacted, which reduced my immersion a tad.
They say old what's-his-name's gone down with the gloom.
Who?
The Thief reboot is almost unanimously regarded as the weakest game in the series, and a lot of that has to do with its level design that focused more on linear parkour action and less on tightly designed playgrounds for pilfering. Series fans wanted to spend time casing joints and stealthing around looping interiors rather than pelting it from A to B across wooden beams and up climbable walls. But how does Legacy of Shadow compare? Well, there's both good news and bad news here. The first tutorial level wasn't just visually reminiscent of the fourth game, but its level design was also very similar. Sure, there was no parkouring, there weren't as many walls to climb, and there were a couple of small looping areas and sewers to waddle through, but it still felt fairly linear in its design. To give the game the benefit of the doubt, though, this level was probably simplified in order to better ease people into the experience, as the later level that I played, Ravencourt Manor, was much more intricate in its design, echoing that of the classic Thief games.
Need to find a way in.
There were multiple routes of entry into the manor, various paths to take both inside and out, and the building itself was a multi-floored structure that encouraged stealthy exploration and careful planning. I will say that this level still felt smaller than the Lord Bafford's Manor level from the first game, but as a counter to that, the modern-day visuals meant that Ravencourt felt like a much more realistic location to explore.
Something about this place feels watched.
Northcrest's library has
A Thief game isn't really a Thief game if the stealth is done wrong, which is yet another reason why Thief 4 didn't land too well with fans. But Legacy of Shadow looks to be going in the right direction, mainly thanks to the inclusion of VR, which makes the feeling of crouching behind boxes and popping your head up from sewer grates feel so much more immersive.
If I die on these streets, tell the captain I died loyal.
Sure, Thief 4 had a peek button, but in Legacy of Shadow, your actual neck is the peek button, and that makes every moment of sneaking and spying feel way more true to life. You're actually there after all. Staying in the shadows is once again the order of the day if you want to sneak past guards successfully. There's a light meter on the back of Magpie's glove which will tell you if you're illuminated, and there's a few nifty tools at your disposal that will help you extinguish light sources, like water arrows and the ability to pinch out candle flames. One of the coolest little additions to the game, though, is that you can also physically blow out the candles using your headset's microphone, a feature that also doubles up as a potential distraction tool too. Turn this setting on and the microphone will pick up your voice, meaning you can shout at guards to cause distractions or lure them towards you. But it's probably best to leave this one off if you're a streamer and want to commentate on your playthrough, as the constant babbling will broadcast your location to the enemies at all times. There were a couple of very cool moments of stealth that stood out during my playthrough. One involved sneaking around a room with a sleeping guard in it, quietly opening drawers and reading notes until I worked out how to unlock a cell door to gain the loot inside.
Aha! We're in. Try not to be smug, Magpie.
And the other one was when I accidentally alerted a pair of soldiers who were guarding the level exit as I tried to climb out of the sewers. This drew them to my location, so I jumped back into the sewers, climbed out of another manhole, and then was able to leg it through a now unguarded exit. Other stealthy mechanics in the game include pickpocketing, a bow for long-range kills or takedowns, and if you're feeling cheeky, there are plenty of objects lying around that you can throw at sleeping guards, if you want to troll them just before your escape.
Don't trust them. You messed up.
Great. Straight into someone's kitchen. Smells like a week-old hangover.
If you're trying to reach the exit of a level after some top-notch shoplifting, it's important that you can get around accurately, and the movement schemes for Thief VR were all pretty responsive. There's no teleport to move here, only smooth movement, but you can choose between click turning and smooth turning if you've got a slightly wobbly tummy. That was the only movement option in the menus of the demo I played, so crouching had to be done with a button press rather than physically crouching, which, to be fair, is probably a wise choice, as playing this game without click to crouch would be murder on the knees. Other than that, I had no issues with wandering around the environment, and there are also a fair amount of places to climb, be it ladders to reach vantage points or handily placed bricks like these ones, which inevitably lead to a lovely little loot stash.
Let's climb a little higher.
And whenever I did have to climb anything, my grip always felt accurate and I had no problems pulling myself up from things or vaulting through windows. Of course, just because the movement works well doesn't mean you won't accidentally bumble around a corner and into the full view of a patrolling guard, and that's where the combat comes in. Although I actually didn't get to try much combat because I was told that it's best to avoid being spotted altogether, as death comes at you fast if you're seen. You do have a blackjack weapon, which will be familiar to series fans, and you can use this to knock enemies out from behind, but it's useless in face-to-face combat. The only lethal weapon I did try was the bow, which, to me at least, felt a bit clunky to aim with. It's definitely not useful at super long range, and it doesn't seem to do a huge amount of damage either, so it might be best to limit its use to a tool that aids your stealth, because it seems like a fairly unreliable murder weapon.
Captain says patrol. He means suffer.
So, all in all, Thief VR Legacy of Shadow looks like a worthy addition to the series, combining the gameplay stylings of both the originals and the remake into a satisfying VR stealth game that should please the hardcore whilst also giving the series a modern spin. The return of the original Garrett is also going to be music to fans' ears, and I can already envisage non-VR owning Thief fans lamenting the fact that they won't be able to get their mechanical eyes on this one without shelling out for a headset first. In quality terms, it's definitely behind Batman Arkham Shadow, which really is the gold standard of VR immersion for me, especially considering that was only a Quest 3 exclusive, but it's still looking like it'll be a solid, challenging, thiefy experience, and in my opinion, the stealth game genre is way more enjoyable and exciting in VR than it is in flat. So if you want to put your face inside a thief, you'll be able to do so on PlayStation VR 2, PC VR, MetaQuest 2, 3 and 3S sometime this year. But when exactly that is, I don't know. The fact sheet I'm looking at here just says launch 2025, which isn't really very helpful, is it? Bye!
The glyph stone. We found it!
Now is a great time to score some incredible games through Humble Choice. Live now through to October 7th, you can grab WWE 2K25, Destiny 2 Legacy Collection, The Plucky Squire, Return to Monkey Island, and more. Whether you're building up your backlog or discovering something new, this is the perfect time to pick up these fan favourites. Plus, every purchase supports a good cause, with this month's featured charity being Team Rubicon. Get a curated mix of PC games every month, all for just £11.49 a month.